It's become clear to me as I'm currently letting go of things, and specifically going through terrible withdrawal, trying to give up some addictions. Small addictions, I thought. We don't realize how big they are until we try to give them up. And mainly with me smoking cigarettes. I've wanted to give up for a long time. I have given it up. For usually it lasts a year without smoking, and then I'll go back. And so I decided to turn the camera on as I'm going through major withdrawal from quitting smoking and struggling with other, mostly emotional addictions. But I wanted to share this because, for lots of different reasons, but I wanted to, part of me wasn't sure whether to show this stage, but I think it's important because some people might be going through it, or they might go through it in the future. And so I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky guy. I'm always on a pretty high vibration. But I thought, let's show somebody when they're down. And so this is what it looks like. I didn't shave. I haven't showered. I'm going out of my mind. Just with the symptoms, not so much wanting to have a cigarette. Just the serious, difficult symptoms, the withdrawals. It kind of took me by surprise because it's pretty intense this time. And I think it's because I'm not only giving this up, but a lot of other things, especially emotional. So when you add it all together, it's a pretty rough ride. And what I also wanted to share was the epiphany that I've had, that we hear people talk about addiction. And in spiritual circles, we hear them talk about it. But I realize as I'm going through this, how much we're downplaying this. And I don't want to make it the enemy. Mankind's struggle, we can't blame it on addictions. However, I think addictions are one of the biggest symptoms of our spiritual struggle. And they can be the biggest obstacles. And especially when we deny them, and especially when we allow them to pile up, especially when we downplay them. And I think as a human race, we're downplaying this way too much. Again, I don't want to make it, I wouldn't want to see us make it that's the problem, that's the real issue with the human race, is these addictions. It's not. But if we're to spiritually grow and evolve, we have to be real about what's going on in this very complex world. That's the other thing. Often our little minds, I say little, but it's not little, it's quite complex, our minds. But our minds tend to, we see it in everyday life when we have if something's going on physically with us or emotionally, we look at one or two things and say, that's it, that's why I'm this way right now. And we try to, and we put a label on it. But it's become very clear to me over the last few years of just how complex actually it all is. And we can't, of course, deal with it all. Because there's just too much. There's so much we're not even seeing that's going on in this illusion, this manifestation of this expression of consciousness. So much. We can't possibly, at least in the mind, understand or deal with it all. And so we see this world that's become so complex. And even people, the more we connect with people, we start to see how complex the mind can be and self-delusions and all these things. So it's become clear to me that the human race, we're all addicts. And so we're striving to evolve and change, but we're downplaying our struggles with addictions. And so I'm going to go out on a limb and be bold, and a lot of people probably will immediately go, yeah, whatever, addict, you're just as you projecting onto me. But seriously, we're all addicts. All of us. The healthiest, the most, there might be an odd exception, but 99.9999999% of us are addicts. You're an addict. And I say that with love. I'm an addict. And I'm going to run down just top of my head, and I'm going to miss so much. But just to show you what I mean, the obvious. People all around the world are addicted to medications by a system that is not, a big majority of us know now that the medical profession has good people in it, but it's become something else. It's transformed over the decades, and it's there to keep us sick. It's there to make us make money. And so it just keeps pumping. So there's so many people in this world. I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of people, millions of people, billions of people still believing in the medical system, and they'll take every drug and just constantly being pumped with all these antidepressants, and the list goes on. Just they're all bad for you. And all they do is cover up symptoms, or fix symptoms of something else and give you new symptoms. It's just a mess. But there's probably still a few exceptions. In dire emergencies, there's some drugs that still can have a good use. But overall, the human race is incredibly addicted to modern-day medicine. Humans were addicted to alcohol, narcotics of various kinds, so many. Those are the obvious. And they're a big problem. However, and cigarettes, obviously. But here's a list of the other things that we downplay, that are, even though they don't physically show themselves as being so fierce, they are fierce in how they affect our lives and our emotional growth and our relationships. And so we have people on this planet that are addicted to junk food. They're addicted to television. They're addicted to the system. They're addicted to wants. It's a huge list. I'm going to miss a big majority of it, but I'll just try to pop off a few so you get the idea of what I'm talking about. People are addicted to sugar. Sugar is a massive problem. I never liked sweets. I eat a tiny bit here and there, but I never liked sweets, so I've been lucky there. But people are really addicted to sweets. It's a serious problem, and it's really bad for your health, much more than people realize. Your emotional health. Elderly people have a big addiction on sweets as you get older. Most of us, as we get older, we start to see why elderly people eat so much sweets. Something, when we get older, we become more susceptible to the addiction of sweets. And then some people, right, with the system and everything else, are addicted as children. If you look at the sweet cereals and kids going to school and having Coke and chocolate bars and chips and even things that don't seem sweet have so much sugar in them. So even besides the heavy sugar that's in, ice cream and cookies and candies and drinks, but it's even in things you wouldn't expect. So even when we're not being loaded with sugar directly, it's in salty things, it's in junk food, it's in, even things that are not sweet but are savory, crackers and chips and things like that, and other products that we don't think of as sweets have sugar in it. So much has sugar in it. And it's also, now they know it's a big factor in Alzheimer's. So I won't spend too much time, or I won't spend any more time on that, but sugar is a big problem on the planet. Caffeine. I haven't had coffee in years. I'll have the odd coffee. I have 1 or 2 coffees a year now. But back in, when I was younger, yeah, I drank a lot of coffee. And a lot of people still do. And it's in tea too. And so caffeine, some people are really addicted to caffeine. Again, junk food. So I could probably go on and on, but believe me, the everyday person, even the healthiest person, even the person that's eats healthy and organic or even raw, a lot of even people that, and you see it with the ones that struggle with raw more so, they're addicted to food. We're addicted to food. We don't need to consume as much food as we do. In fact, it's my belief, and some others have done it, that potentially in our evolution, man doesn't even need to eat. But we'll leave that one for another day. But the fact is, if you really look at it, humans, we consume much more food than actually we require. And so you see it even with people, some people, I should say, I'm not attacking all the raw people, but some people, even, because I want to point out to extreme to show you that it's everybody. No one's exempt. There's even people in the raw community that eat a massive amount of raw food. I mean a lot. And if they don't get that massive amount, they have problems. And so we're addicted to food. And here's the biggest one that's often downplayed. We're addicted to things that are not of so physical, but emotional and mental. We're addicted to the mind. The mind, most of us as we go further and further on our own spiritual journeys, really get confronted with just how wonderful, but how dangerous in our growth, or essential any way you want to look at it, but how difficult the mind can be in ideas. That's also one of our biggest problems. If you look out in the world, you see people are addicted to their ideas, addicted to a belief system, religions, even spiritual beliefs. Some people start moving along spiritually and growing, and then the mind jumps in, and then you see these people and they're telling other people that they're wrong, whatever their spiritual beliefs are, they're wrong, or this is how it needs to be. Well, there's a sign you might be addicted to your thoughts and your ideas. Because, there's so many ways to look at this complex expression of consciousness. And so to narrow it down on anything and say this is the path, well, it can be the path for you. But as we're ever changing, the one constant is everything changes. Even people on a spiritual path, things will change. Ideas will change. It's good to stay open to that. But when we're not open to it, then there's another tip-off. Addicted to ideas. We're addicted to our emotions. That's a huge one. That's a big one I've been going through too. And we're addicted to relationships. And that's massive. Seeking love from others is probably the biggest addiction on this planet. And for those that don't feel they're going to get it through others, then I think it's a natural progression. They might have a little more physical addictions than, say, others. But again, that's just speculation. But, you might find somebody that's, I don't believe in love, or I don't believe in, I'm not looking to have a family, or, those kind of emotional connections or seeking that a lot of us have. Even those that reject that, it if they really look, they'll see they've just replaced it with things, Okay, so they're not addicted to relationships or romantic love or stuff like that, or what other people think. But they got to have their cars and their, whatever, they'll fill it. And I think that's why what we're seeing here is a natural, it's just happening whether we want it to or not. A great removal, I've mentioned it before, a great removal is happening. A lot of it is just happening on its own. And then, for a lot of us, it's a decision. We're removing things on purpose. I've been removing things for the last couple of years. I was never big into material things, but I did find things were piling up, things I didn't need. So over the years, I've gotten rid of a big bulk of my possessions, and I'm still continuing to do it. And so I have very little now. And by the time I'm done, I know I'll probably have just a knapsack. But I've been going through that. A lot of other people have been getting rid of possessions and things, and that's great. Movies, I used to be a real movie buff. I still enjoy a good movie, but first of all, movies, there's so much negativity and violence and manipulation going on that years ago I started to really, let's put it this way, years ago, see, 4 or 5 years ago, I probably had thousands of movies. I've given them all away, now I've got it down to maybe 100. And by the time I'm done, I'm probably going to have probably just a handful. So anyways, I've been getting rid of certain things. I've been emotionally letting go. We as we progress spiritually, we start to realize we need to let things go. So I've let go of a lot of things. It's been many years of enjoying the fact that I've let go of the past. A lot of the past. Maybe not 100% of the past, but 99% of the past. It's all forgiven and forgotten. It's irrelevant. And that's nice. I'm kind of rambling here. I don't know if you can hear that. The neighbor downstairs is a really talented musician. So what you're hearing is he's riffing on his guitar. We're all addicted, yes we are, me and you. We're all addicted, you and me. We're all addicted. Don't fool yourself. Anyways, where was I? I don't want to make this too long, because I'm not going to edit it, but I don't want this to be too long. It will be long, but... Anyways, I could go on and on about all the addictions, and they're so elaborate, but I just wanted to point out some obvious stuff, so hopefully it rings some bells. Because humans, we do have a real talent for denial. And I'm not going to tell you, I could probably guide you and give you a big list of how to know when you're addicted. You could probably find it online, but honestly, you're going to know. You're going to know when things don't serve you. You're going to start, it's usually a progression with me where you start saying, oh, I want to give that up one day, and then it goes along, and I really want to give this up, and then you get to the point, I got to give this up, and whatever it is. So, you'll know. So you don't need to push it. This is not to tell you to do something. This is really to share in case you're going through it. Maybe to plant a seed subconsciously. Whatever. I just felt I should express it. But I'm not going to tell you you need to get rid of your addictions. You're going to want to. Probably. I think most of us. We're all on a spiritual journey. Some people don't know it. And those are the ones that some people say, oh, they're asleep. There's so many people that are asleep and sheeple. Okay. I used to say a few things like that, a long time ago. I used to say things like that. I don't say them anymore. Because as you grow, you start to understand more. And and another thing, addiction is the judgments. So we want to let go of judgments. And so now I see that even people that seem to be sheeple or addicted to the system or controlling the system or everything else, we're all on a spiritual journey. They just aren't aware of it yet. They know they're on a journey, they just don't think of it as spiritual. And some of us were there, that back in my early 20s, I knew I was on a personal journey, but I didn't think it was spiritual. But I think it is. I think of course, it is. This is a spiritual journey. And I think I lost my point there, but I'm getting kind of distracted with the music. He really knows how to riff. I'm sure he'll never see my videos, but if he ever does, Paul, you rock, man. Keep at it. Anyway, here's another thing about, obviously it's, I would say, and maybe you'll find that there's a necessity to be real with ourselves, that we are addicts. And that's also why I'm making this, because I think as a race we need to get more serious, not put all the blame on it, but be real about the obstacles we have. And so as we're all trying to grow spiritually, we get a little lost sometimes. We get lost in relationships, we get lost in all these different ways, and we're trying to figure it all out. Even when we let go a lot of the outside and we're going inward, we still get, a little lost at times. And I think a big part of it is we're also not giving enough acknowledgement to the fact that we're addicted to a lot of things. So we're on a spiritual journey, and we're unaware of just how addicted we are to things. And so this can get in the way, or make it really difficult. And by just acknowledging it, knowing it, I think it can help us. Again, I don't want to make it the blame. It's not the blame. But they're big obstacles for the human race, is the fact that we're all addicted to our minds, to our thoughts, to our beliefs, to food, to drugs, to television, to, etc., 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 etc. All of us, you, I don't care how spiritual you are, how healthy you are, you're addicted. It could be addicted to a relationship, it could be addicted, who knows, but you're addicted. And that's okay. That's part of this experience. We come here in these amazing shells that we don't even, we're just now barely realizing, even science barely realizing, that these shells can do anything we want. We can manifest everything we want. They're amazing, but part of this, and we're needed. We're making it a horrible experience with war and violence and all these other things we're doing in control. But the fact is, we're needed. There's enough food and space for everybody. If we stop, fighting over it. And here's the other thing that I really realized, and I know I'm bouncing around here, but I'm just trying to pick up thoughts as they come. But I think by realizing this, it helps us, but it also will help if we admit that we're addicts. And we'll probably always be addicts in some form. It's starting to clarify what's really, because like a big part of what I can't understand, or what I have not been able to understand because it's just never been a part of my life, is the insanity, or at least how I perceive the insanity of what the human race, or more so the smaller echelon that for centuries have been trying to control, or have been controlling us. And the more we're spiritual growing, we see they're trying to tighten the grip. And they're willing to, you know, the lengths, I don't want to get too dark in this, but I mean, we know that as we're all growing spiritually and taking back our freedom, the more we're doing this, the more we're seeing it on the internet, we're seeing it in jobs and money. They're tightening, they're trying, they're feeling the loss of control, and so they're tightening and getting better at what they're doing, and we're seeing it, we're feeling the pressure. And so that can be difficult. And so some people just lash out in anger at them. Then some of us want to love them. And then a lot of us, you know, probably all of us want to understand. But for me, it's been really difficult to understand how someone can justify doing things that kill millions of people, slowly or immediately. How people can do things that, you know, project really the human race on a very possible collision course with self-destruction, extinction. The possibility is really there. I believe we can overcome, and part of me believes we will, but I mean, anyways, aside of that, what I'm saying is, it's become clear to me that, you know, I've more and more thought, yeah, these people that are doing this, you just got to give them love and forgive them, and that's the only way, and I believe that, but I still didn't understand why, and I probably will never truly understand, you know, how somebody can molest a child, or, you know, spend a lifetime deceiving people to get something, and risking the human race and risking the world to get what they wanted, you know, all this stuff. I'll probably never truly understand it, but I'm starting to realize that they're addicted too. And so if we can see it in ourselves, maybe we can see it in them, that these smaller group of people that are really misguided, I say misguided, but, you know, a part of me thinks, well, this is the expression, they have a role to play. But those that are causing a lot of harm and pain to the masses and to the planet, I think we start to realize if we're struggling, of course they're struggling with addictions. If we're struggling with mind, of course they're really addicted to the mind. And with all their abundance, they're probably really addicted to a lot of physical things too. And so if we show understanding, because think of an addict. Let's go to the worst, heroin or cocaine or alcohol. When someone is in addicted, I've never been addicted to those things, luckily. My addictions have been more minor, but if we look at those people that go through that, when they're in that state and it gets to their lowest point, we know they'll do anything for their fix. And it's not out of evilness. It's not because they're evil. That crackhead, yes, might hurt somebody. And we see this is why their lives fall apart, because they start deceiving and hurting and lying, and they might even kill for their fix. You know, who knows? And we've seen that it's not because they're evil. It's because they become so lost in the addiction that they just can't think straight, and they have to get that fix. Well, this smaller echelon, whoever they are, they have access to these drugs too. So, just like the crackhead will do whatever it takes, if you have someone who's making billions and we see them and they just can't make enough money, and they just can't steal enough, and they just can't manipulate enough, I'm starting to realize that it's maybe we should have some compassion. Well, not maybe, we should always have compassion, but some understanding and compassion that with all that money and resources, they're struggling to hold on to it. So they're addicted to the power, And so they just don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to hold on to it. And in their own lives, they're probably, they need those millions because they're probably addicted. A lot of them are addicted as well to heroin. So they have a steady flow of those things, and everything seems fine because the billionaire, trillionaire, can probably afford all the cocaine he wants. But he's got to keep that amount of money to keep that going. Or alcohol, or addicted to things, they need the mansions and the houses. So if we look at it from that point of view, so as we deal with our own addictions, I think it's an opportunity to have more compassion and realize that we're all addicted. We're all addicted. It's part of this expression. It's part of ascension. To ascend. We're trying to ascend our addictions. Physical. We're trying to ascend our emotional addictions and our mental addictions and our addiction to the mind and our belief that we're these characters. And that's why we're seeing a great removal. And I really think that's the natural progression as things are falling away in our lives, some by choice, a lot not by choice. And I think it's this a natural human expression, because once everything keeps falling away, ideas, judgments, physical addictions, seeking, once it all falls away, what's left? What's left is that part of you that feels the real you, we call the one, the source, God, that we know is real. We feel it. At times we feel that divinity. We feel that spaciousness. When we're at our best, we feel it. And that's when we feel it, if you think about it, it's because for a time or in those moments, we've let go and all those other things have fallen away, and that's all that's remaining. And then when we lose that, it's because then the addictions come back in, the mind comes back in, or the other addictions come back in, and so we struggle. And so we want to try to get back in there, and then even the mind starts to want to control our spiritual journey, and it can be a real mess. Excuse me. So, probably we'll wrap this up soon, but I guess I just want to express that, to show you somebody who's, man, giving up smoking, giving up some, I've given up a lot. Like I said, I've been in my own personal journey of removal for some time now. I haven't eaten, I was never much of a meat eater, but I gave that up. I'm not sure, I think it's been 1.5 years now. I was never addicted to alcohol, luckily, but I was a heavy drinker, partier in my 20s. I haven't drank in years. I'll have a couple beers a year. So I was lucky that I never crossed that barrier to where you get addicted, so I was able to let that go. So I've been letting things go, letting go of material things, letting go of judgments, letting go of the past, just letting it go. It's just a continual process. And then with myself, and you'll probably find this, you'll start to find that there's a few things that end up, as you really get deep spiritually, there's a few things that are still there that get to the bottom of the list. The last few things. And I'm getting down to the last few things. I don't have a lot of addictions left, but I have some. Mostly emotional. But as you get down to the last few, that's really when you see how addicted you are. There's a reason they were the last ones to go. Because they're the worst. And so I would say cigarettes is not my biggest addiction. It is one of the hardest ones to kick. But I mean, as it really, how it affects my life, it doesn't have a major effect as some addictions do. But it is time to go. But where I'm, the ones that really were the last ones to go are, for instance, ideas of romance. and expectations of people, and it's become really clear that I've especially in romance, I've become, once I love people very easily, and once I become really close to someone, an addiction, and I think it's with all this, an addiction forms. And so in my family relationship and my friendships, that's long been gone. I don't have attachments to, I love people, don't get me wrong, but I don't need a lot of friends. I'm happy to be around, meet people, and I'm happy to interact and even make friends, but I don't feel this addiction or need to have people around me or seek, like a lot of people need a lot of friends, they need to be around people. I do not. But in relationships, once I get in, I'm a very committed person. Once I get in a relationship, I give it all, but it became clear recently that an addiction forms. And even addiction, I didn't mention this, we even get addicted to our pain and our suffering. I've seen that with a lot of people. There's a lot of people that don't know how to exist without suffering, so they create problems in their lives. There's a lot of you, you'll know who you are, and we see them as they start to enter the spiritual community, where they'll start joining groups and they'll start coming out to events. And they want to be around spiritual people, hoping it rubs off on them. And some, I'm not saying a lot, I'm just saying some people. And then we'll start to see, though, that they're not actually doing the work at the time. They're just hoping that it can just rub off on them. And then we start to see that they're actually addicted. And this is where some of us that express our video, make videos and go online, we start to feel it. When you hear us say, look, I'm just a person too, it's because we're talking to those people, because those people start to attach to us. And they start to want and seek, and they'll just, out of the blue, and we're happy to help, don't get me wrong. If you need to reach out to us, we're here, but, we're humans too, and so I'm just saying when you hear some of us say that, it's because we've usually encountered these people that are at this stage, and this stage is, they haven't really committed to their spiritual journey. They're just actually covering up and these are just some people, and just letting thoughts come as they, so, this isn't that important, and I'm not saying there's a lot of people, but there's some people that they're reading the spiritual material, they're opening up to a lot of stuff, but they're just playing at the present time, and they're not serious about going inward. And so the only reason I mentioned that, I got sidetracked there, but what we start to see is, with some of these people, and I know some people like this, they're addicted to their suffering. And so they'll engage in conversation, oh yeah, no judgment and no attachments, or they'll say they accept these ideas. And then they turn around and they'll even admit, I know people that admit and say, I need to make this mistake. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people tell me, I need to make this mistake before doing it. And this is usually relationships, or emotional, or some kind of relationship. And they'll announce, I'm about to do something, and they'll hum and haw, and they'll suffer, and the other thing, another tip off to this is, if you keep having to say the same things over and over again, then that's a tip off you're addicted to suffering. If you have to keep saying for decades, oh, why do I need people to be around me, I need from people, and they'll say it over and over again for years, no matter the spiritual steps they take and the material they open up to, and it just becomes redundant after a while. And now they're just, and then they'll announce, and then they'll know they shouldn't do this thing they're about to do, and they'll do it. And then they'll repeat it. And that's fine. They obviously have to go through that. I'm not saying you're wrong or they're wrong. I'm just trying to point out that another really big thing is that a lot of people are addicted to suffering. They don't know how to live without it. And maybe perhaps that's also a factor of why there's so much suffering on the planet. I would say that's more in the industrial worlds. I don't know, but I wouldn't think in some of the other world, the other parts of the world, I wouldn't think, I wouldn't say that, poor people in some third world country are addicted to suffering, that's why they're suffering. I'm not saying that. I'm more talking about those of us that have more choices presented to them, that basically are have pretty good lives, but seek ways to make ourselves suffer. And so I think that shows that we're addicted. You have people that are so unhappy, and yet they have people that love them. They'll have they may not be rich, but most of us in the industrial world, even though the planet's paying for it, it comes at the cost of all the poor people, and we need to acknowledge that too. Which is why I've been letting go. I've been wanting to let go for my own sake, but even before I got deep into the spiritual journey, I wanted to let go of a lot of material things because it became clear to me that for every DVD that I own, for every nice apartment that I live in, for all of these wonderful things that I am grateful for, there's a cost to the planet. And because of the way this system is set up, food and money and things that come to me, somebody else has to lose. Especially in the third world countries. We live this way because we're stealing from them in every way that we can. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. The point is, especially in the modern world, we sit in our little ivory towers in our little apartments and houses, and we see people are still not happy. And yeah, part of it's because you're not going to find happiness, true happiness. Obviously, you're not going to find yourself through things. But I think we also see that people that are living pretty damn good lives just go running out to make all these mistakes. They're like driven because they need the suffering. But anyways, enough of that. So, to wrap this up, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot. The point is we're addicts, and I think we need to really acknowledge that all of us, that we seem to be consciousness. This is just what I feel right now, but it is a common belief. I try not to grab on too hard to believe, so I'm not saying this is what it is, but it does feel to me that what this seems to be is an expression in consciousness, separating itself to discover itself in this hologram of 3 dimensions. And it's very complex. And so we have billions, trillions, because it's not even just people that are consciousness, it's in everything. It's in animals, and your cat, and your dog, and the bird, and the plants, and probably even in this camera, and in this, in this bed, and in this blanket. I think it's probably in everything, but it seems to be playing out this expression, and it's very complex. And it seems to be playing out. We're on a spiritual journey. And where and how this is going to play out, I don't know. For me, that's the letting go. Another big thing to let go is the fear of the future. That's the biggest thing I'm struggling with. As I've let so many things go, I still find myself, not even in the mind now, it's so deep now, even now that I've let go of worrying about the future, I can still feel it under the surface. So I don't worry about the future a lot, but I can still feel it. Because it's like, where is this going? What's going to happen? So that's another thing I want to let go. I am learning to let go, but it's a process. Everything seems to be a process with us. And so in this big, grand expression that's so complex and wonderful and amazing, I think one thing we need to stop downplaying. Again, I think it's important now, I can't stress enough, don't make it the cause. Human beings, I really don't feel that the reason we suffer and do the things we do is all because of addictions. That's a cop-out. Because addictions, what are addictions to begin with? Addictions are trying to fill a gap. Trying to fill something that's missing. So what's missing? So that's the important thing. And what's missing is obviously is tapping into ourselves, into that self-love, into that, tapping into what we really are. And so we fill it with addictions. So again, don't want to make it the enemy, but I think we really need, I think it behooves us all in our own spiritual growth and in how we deal with others and compassion for others, and even those that seem to be evil, or really misguided. If we acknowledge that we're all addicts, and we see that in others, then we can have more compassion, and we can have more understanding. And so we'll let Paul play us out. I don't know how to play the guitar, by the way. That's when my fingers are doing weird things, but whatever. It's air guitar. There's no wrong way to play air guitar. So I just want to leave you with that final thought, that we're all one, and we're all spectacular, and we're all addicts, and that's okay. So it's okay. But just let that sink in, if we let it sink in. And also, the reason for showing this is, although I might look pretty calm right now, I'm going out of my mind. Going out of my mind and physically just, and I don't get sick, that's the thing. I haven't been sick at all in well over 3 years, and even before that, I would get sick once a year. So I'm a person that's not used to getting sick. So for me, these withdrawals, hot flashes and just feeling so crappy and pins and needles and all these things is a real trial. And then my mind, of course, and my emotions are all over the place. So I don't know how low I look to you, but I was hoping to really show you that if you're feeling low or down in the future, you get low, or you're dealing with these kind of things, or addictions, or struggling, it's okay. We all go through it. Everyone. And so it's okay. You can do it. Be easy on yourself. If you want to accomplish things like letting go of addictions, ease into it. Don't bully yourself into it, because that's the mind again. It won't work. But when you're ready, you'll know it. When you're ready to see what needs to be let go, you will. So I encourage you to just to keep doing what you're doing. You're not doing anything wrong. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And if you're in a similar situation with me, then I hope this helps. And at some point, if you do get to that, I hope it helps. So I think I'll leave it there, because this has gotten quite long. And I don't know how long this has gotten. Wow. Okay, so I better cut this. So I love you all. And my only real advice is, no matter what you're doing or going through, nature's a great way to go out and tap in to the stillness. But however you do it, tap into your stillness. Quiet the mind, because we're not going to figure it all out in here. Tap into the feeling of what you really are. And that would be my only real advice. Whatever you're going through, whatever you're trying to accomplish, whatever you're doing, don't forget to tap into the stillness. Be loved, be happy, be joyous if you can. Well, you can, it's just a choice. And let's just be what we are, be love. I love you.